What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy, and good grief. Like, right in the middle of my drive back to Texas, apparently, a bunch of people decided to storm the Capitol building in Washington, D.C.? Like, what? I mean, granted, hardly anything completely surprises me after all the craziness of 2020. But geez, people. Okay, I have quite a bit to say about this, so let me just actually start getting to it. First off, on the most lighthearted note I can think of, a bunch of y'all are spelling capital wrong in this case. We're talking about capital as in, like, official government building. So it's spelled with an O, not an A. All y'all spelling it with an A are doing it wrong. That's the form of the word capital that you use for talking about, like, capital letters. Okay? So spell it with an O, please. Anyway. Now getting a bit more serious with this. Right off the bat, I can almost in a sense understand people comparing this with, well, comparing and contrasting with BLM protests and all that kind of stuff that was shaken down, like, partway through. I guess it was mostly in, I don't know, like, summer of 2020. And again, I can kind of understand it just because people are wanting to make statements regarding the differing groups of people involved, the differing reactions, and basically wanting to point out the very thing that I want to point out in cases like these, which is the hypocrisy that people demonstrate with these kinds of actions. Like, how can you condemn riots, looting, vandalism, and all that kind of stuff in one instance and be involved with it in the other just because, you know, oh, in this case, it lines up with your political thoughts and beliefs, and in this other case, it does not? That is hypocrisy at its finest and worst. At its most obvious, is what I meant. But anyway, all these things I've been saying about political hypocrisy in particular, it's just shining on right through. I, for one, I condemned the violence, the looting, and those kinds of things when it came to the BLM protests and such after the death of George Floyd. I also will similarly condemn the violence and vandalism and all of those basically unnecessary and unhelpful acts that happened at the Capitol building recently. Because, you know, I'm consistent in that way. I don't believe that violence and such egregious acts against the law are generally the way to go in pretty much any case. Like, if we were absolutely, undeniably faced with outright tyranny, the likes of Hitler and Stalin and such, like, okay, in that case, it would pretty much be an effort to actually overthrow, if not kill, the ruling tyrant and dismantle the government entirely. The idea would not be, as it seemed to be in this particular case of storming the Capitol building, the idea would not be, hey, let's go in there and disrupt the process that is in progress because we think the election results should be overturned. Like, It would have made more sense if y'all waited until after that shook down, even. Like, even then I would not have condoned any violence or vandalism or whatever. A bunch of y'all have been saying, oh, the process isn't over yet. Wait until the entire process is done. You clearly did not wait. So, what kind of nonsense is this? You try and claim that, oh, let's wait. Trump didn't actually lose the election. It's just, a government deep conspiracy hoax thing, whatever you want to call it. And, the truth will come to light whenever the process is finished. Y'all went from trust the process to storm the Capitol real freaking quick. All right? And it's ridiculous. And how exactly does interrupting such a process, questioning the results of the election, how does any of that bring about more trust in the political process? And here's why I disagree with the whole thought process that the election was rigged in any way. First off, Donald Trump himself has been priming us for this thought process for months now, if not years. Before any votes were even cast, he was casting doubt on the entire process. He said he would only accept it if the results were legitimate and fair. Then he said that it could basically only be legitimate and fair if it went his way. There were multiple steps in between there, but that is essentially the thought process that he primed every stinking one of his followers to believe. Like, the fact that he basically told his supporters to go out and vote in person and then brings into question the mail-in voting process, which he encouraged his own supporters not to use. Duh, it was going to go massively Democrat when the mail-in votes came in. Because you told your supporters not to use the mail-in voting system, if at all possible. And, never mind the fact that, the people who were trying to use the mail-in voting process that many states allowed because of COVID and all that kind of stuff, which y'all are continuing to deny as a hoax, that process is mostly going to be used by the people who are trying to stay safe, meaning the ones who are not Trump supporters, because Trump called that a hoax from the start and has continually and at every turn questioned the legitimacy of coronavirus and its effect on our society. But, oh no, because there was such a massive spike in Democrat votes so late in the process, it must be a conspiracy. The election is not fair. Throw out the results. And then we have all these cases being brought to various courts across the entire flipping country, trying to question the election results. And granted, multiple were tossed out. I mean, first off, the ones that were tossed out, there were legitimate reasons for them. If you want to actually, follow the legal process the way that it should be followed, do it in the correct legal manner, all right? You're not gonna suddenly, just throw out some claims that have possibly some backing. I'm not going to say that there was outright no evidence anywhere, but if your claims are really so legitimate, do it in the correct way. And now I've heard some people, call into question why some of the cases were tossed out. But even the ones that were heard were turned down. Okay? All of you out there trying to say that, there's absolutely nothing that has been done, no courts or anybody have actually tried to hear, the correct, accurate side of the story, you're wrong. There are cases that have been heard in courts and tried and found to not really matter, found to not really make a difference or not be worth overturning any election results. And never mind the fact that on top of all this, other than maybe the recent Georgia runoff, nobody, and I repeat, nobody, not a single soul in this entire country was calling into question any of the election results except for the presidential results. But why? That makes no sense. The same ballots that were used to vote for president are the same ones that were used to vote in every single other office that was up for election. So if you're only going to call into question the presidential results, I'm sorry, you can't do that. You have to call into question every result on the ballot if you're calling any into question. If we were going to redo the entire thing, or if we were going to redo any of it, we would have to redo all of it, okay? So, no, it makes no sense. Trump is just looking out for himself because that's all he ever looks out for. He only cares about himself and maybe his family, and that's it. I've been saying this from the beginning. Trump is selfish. He will always and only ever be selfish. Okay? And on top of that, Trump is a proven, flat-out, bald-faced liar. And he has been basically his entire life. Or at least his entire career. I have had it up to here with Donald Trump. And just all these different ways that he has essentially called our democracy into question. And then his supporters go and do things like storm the Capitol building because, the logic is so, I can't make sense of it. It's so contorted and twisted anymore. You say that you support our country, you want a free and fair election, and, that our country's great, we should trust the process, but then you're the ones going around subverting and distrusting the process and storming the Capitol building because of that. What kind of warped, twisted sense of reality do you live in? What is your brain right now? And it's that kind of ridiculousness that I am against. Any kind of peaceful protest that might have been going on near the Capitol building, okay, whatever. It's peaceful, fine. I understand some people don't agree with what's going on, and okay, the First Amendment exists, you have the freedom of speech, you can state your case, say what you want, whatever. But to the people who got violent and stormed the Capitol building en masse, you're the ones in the wrong here. Some people are claiming that, this particular action wasn't really, as if Donald Trump's presidency was not pretty much the starting point of our country being a laughingstock to the entire rest of the world. First of all, now you care about that? I've been talking about foreign relations and the fact that they actually matter and that Trump has smashed those to bits for years. I've been talking about that. But did anybody listen then? No. Now you suddenly decide to say, oh, yeah, the rest of the world is laughing at us, but, it's nothing really new. This was started years ago by the Democrats. No, it freaking was not. Normally I try and come off as neutral as possible, but I can't be neutral on this. Because Donald Trump himself incited all of this. He encouraged people to question the process, and even later on to basically storm the Capitol building. And when people who support him have committed violent or otherwise heinous acts throughout his presidency, he has only ever called those acts into question far after the damage has been done. The fact that he practically incites this violence and these actions cannot be ignored anymore. He was practically encouraging people to storm the Capitol building weeks before it happened. And did anybody do anything about it? Did anybody try to stop this? Was there any extra security at the Capitol building? Clearly not. If there would have been extra security at the Capitol building, people probably would not have gotten in. But, Trump doesn't care because he's out golfing. If he actually cared for 2 seconds about the legitimacy and the legality of the election and what's been happening, then he would have said something. He would have done... He would have at least suggested an increase in security around the Capitol building so it didn't get stormed and, have people possibly come in and invade the legal process that was happening. But instead, he did nothing. He basically encouraged it to happen. So the fact that people are still acting like this isn't just Donald Trump being selfish, it just baffles me anymore. And I don't care how other people acted before. You acting in the same way that you said was wrong before is hypocrisy. It's the literal definition of hypocrisy. So, again, how can you say that it was wrong in this case and support what's been happening recently? You can't. Not without being a hypocrite. And to end this all off, I will leave you with the most legitimate case that any Bible-believing Christian should hold to. And I'm going to make it as simple as possible as well. We all have this thing in Christianity that we call the Golden Rule. For starters, it does not say to treat others the way that they treat you, or the way that you think they've treated you, or the way that you think they should be treated. No. It says to treat others the way that you want to be treated, which should be an all-out just dismantling of the hypocrisy that we have seen within our politics lately, and the hypocrisy committed by those who have stormed the Capitol building just recently, despite condemning similar violence and vandalism months before. The sheer truth of the matter is, if you are a Christian, you cannot condone this type of violence and aggression, because that is not how you would want to be treated. I guarantee you, You would not want your home suddenly stormed into and vandalized and torn apart just because people don't trust something that's been going on. Just because people think that, something you're engaged in that is trying to just follow a legal process just because they don't trust it. That is the heart of the golden rule. You would not want that to happen to you. Therefore, you should not do it to others. And anybody who would claim any kind of religious standing for any of this, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Okay? And that's the heart of what I really want to get into. Forget the politics. Forget, whatever your thoughts are regarding the election. Yes, I know I've said plenty on that. But at the heart of it all, there is absolutely no way you should be condoning these actions if you are a Christian. Because they are not how you would want to be treated. That is not how Jesus himself told us to behave or act or reason. So, with all that being said, please, 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 if you claim any kind of belief in God, if you claim to be Christian, do not just stand by. Definitely do not condone these egregious acts committed at the Capitol building. Because it's not right. It's not moral, and it's not what God would have us do, as is clearly outlined in the Bible. So, in any case, I've said basically everything that I can think of regarding this. Because I feel like nobody's really going to pay attention to this point anyway. If you have actually watched this entire video, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Please, any discourse on this, say what you want, but don't be like, going into tangential, what about stuff. Like, try and keep things relevant and try and keep it civil. We don't need to sow further division and hatred within our country. The actions against the Capitol building are clear evidence that we need to actually kind of, chill out a little bit and maybe trust each other a little bit more. And, also maybe not be so adamant in our political loyalties. Okay? So anyway, as always, please like the video if you enjoyed it and you agree with what I'm trying to say here. Share it with others if you think they should hear it too. Leave your comments down below with any thoughts that you have, as long as they are civil, please, and, decently thought out. But I do want discussion on these things. So, yeah, exercise your right. It's a free country. You can say what you want. But, this is also my channel, so please try to be as respectful as you can about it. Anyway, yeah. Otherwise, just look in the description for info on my social media pages, and that'll also tell you about subscribing to my channel. Bleh. Which, by the way, please make sure you do that. Subscribe to my channel and click the little notification bell if you want updates when I post new stuff. Because that's pretty much the most surefire way, I think, of following my channel and getting updates when I post new videos. But if you don't trust that, look in the description for other social media pages and how to find and follow those. So anyway, that's it. I've said enough. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until next time, Stay cool, people.